Welcome to the Selling Show, where we unpack, repack, and break down exactly how top experts sell their ideas, their value, and their services. This is your host, David Newman, and you are in the right place if you want better clients, bigger deals, and higher fees. Well, my friends, when you look up thought leadership and thought leadership marketing in the dictionary, if there was a dictionary, there would be one man, one legend, one picture on that page. And as Oprah would introduce him, please welcome Jason Van Orden.
Thanks, David. Nice to be here. That was amazing.
Dude. I am so excited. It's just you, me, and Oprah. We're sitting around drinking coffee. It's going to be amazing.
Love it.
So you are truly, people say, internet marketing pioneer, thought leadership, legend, etc. But truly, I'm allowed to say this. I guess you're not. You are truly one of the pioneers and one of the legends as far as digital marketing, internet marketing. Our tagline around here is marketing for smart people. I'm happy to give you credit for inventing the entire category of marketing for smart people. So you started in 2004, 2005, somewhere in that neighborhood?
2005, yeah.
Walk us through kind of what were the stages and phases that brought you to the work that you're doing today, and what were some interesting pit stops along the way?
Yeah, this is a lot of fun to talk about the pit stops because they're so unexpected, but it's one of the situations you look back and go like, oh, okay, I see how I ended up here, even though I could not have ever expected this is where I would be. And, when I broke out from being an engineer after 3 years of just like not enjoying being an employee, the first thing I dove into was real estate investing. That just happened to be what I was reading books about at the time. Like, let's give a go at this. It was probably a naive choice. But hey, one that got me going and figuring out where to go next. Well, the interesting thing that happened was that a lot of real estate investors started asking me for marketing help because they figured out I knew about marketing. And I wonder, well, how does an engineer know about marketing? It turns out I was also in bands for many years. I was in rock bands throughout the 90s and early 2000s. And that's when that's where I got my marketing chops trying to become a big rock star, I guess. But I studied direct marketing. And in fact, like a lot of stuff through the mail at the times, the early 2000s, I ended up doing a seminar for real estate investors, a 1 day, let's get people in there. I did a launch through snail mail, 3 series of mailing. One of them, I remember I went on a trip to Paris and I sent 83 postcards from Paris with a picture drawn of me at the top of the Eiffel Tower saying, hey, I want you to invite you to come to this direct marketing, ultimate guide 1 day. And anyway, I sold out the room, 25 people, big light bulb. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just got paid $8,000 in 1 day to teach people stuff that I love talking about. And that was a game changer for me. Now, this is great. Maybe real estate investing is not where I need to go. Maybe I need to figure out how to do this, like teaching, what we called information marketing at the time was the big catchphrase, right? Well, I had this product now because I had recorded it. I knew enough to like record it once and then you can sell it multiple times. And so I was burning CDs through my PC tower and I was printing out manuals and going to the post office and putting it into like the flat rate mailboxes and sending it off to people. I needed more leads though. And so I went on the internet looking for leads, 2005. And, there's no YouTube, no Facebook, none of that stuff yet. I was like on forums, answering questions. And then I stumbled upon the word podcasting. I was like, what is this podcasting thing? And I started searching around and it was actually kind of hard at the time to find much info because it was brand new. But eventually I found a couple geeky blog posts explaining what it was. And the software engineer in me is going, this is fascinating. And the marketer entrepreneur in me is going, there's some interesting potential here, maybe in marketing and teaching and branding. And then the musician in me is like, well, I know how to record audio. I can do that. And like, maybe this is something for me to try out. Now, this was really 4 or 5 months of consternation and going, do I want to try something that's completely unproven? Is this really the direction to go? Finally, I was like, you know what? I have nothing to lose. Let's go for it. So I launched a site, podcasting tutorial that got picked up by Google and started attracting traffic. Eventually, fast forward, that led to a book deal that led to speaking gigs about podcasting. Well, on the side, I started this other podcast with a friend in September of 2005, first podcast ever about internet marketing and online business called Internet Business Mastery. And totally unexpectedly, within a year or two, it became a top 10 business show. And so then we had an audience. And then the audience is like writing us and saying, hey, your stories are so inspiring. He was selling stuff on eBay, had left a career in Hollywood. I'd left my career as an engineer, and we were striking out. We're just sharing our story of like what we were figuring out. They're like, this is awesome. Where's the course? Where's the coaching? Can you tell us more? The show's great, but we need the step-by-step. And we're like, oh, okay, coaching program. So, we knew enough to have started building our list. Only like a couple thousand people on the list, but sold the first coaching program there. That was probably about 2006. And then the rest was kind of history. Next thing I knew, like that was our pursuit. I was like, okay, I now have an educational company teaching beginning entrepreneurs how to get started using the internet, and just loved helping people find a new path in life, a different way to go about it. But the other thing I loved about it was when people would show up with a story and expertise, a methodology, a thing, they're like, I have to share this with the world. I want to make a difference with this. And I really loved helping those people. So around 8 or so years ago, I shifted to another business and said, you know what? I want to work with consultants and coaches who are established, doing amazing work, have stuff that needs to reach more people. And they just want more help knowing how to package it up and deliver it in a way that will increase their impact and their income. And so that's the step-by-step zigzaggy story that brought me to what I do here today.
Amazing. There's so much that we could unpack there. Let's talk about some common problems that folks come to you with. So, established consultant, maybe they're 5, 6, 10 years in, making a couple $100,000, but then they're flatlining, right? They're plateauing. Their calendar is full. They're on Zoom calls. They're on airplanes. They're kind of, stressed out, maxed out, burned out. They come to you. They say, Jason, just like you in 2005, I've heard of this thing called the internet. Can you help me scale? Can you help me open up my calendar? Can you get me my life back? That's right. The complaint. What are some of the things they've tried that frustrate them or that haven't worked? And then what's the sort of the path, macro level, that you help to guide them down?
Well, I love this question of things that they've tried, because we all need to understand what have our people already tried before they get to us, right? Often what they've tried, for one thing, they've tried working harder, more hours. At some point, they're like, this is not going to be sustainable, the lifestyle I want. The other thing they've tried is raising their prices, which, hey, that's legitimate. Like, you need to charge what you're worth. And that's one way to increase your income, if that's one of your goals, which is a noble goal. Another thing that they've tried sometimes is to maybe put together some kind of course or something. But in doing so, they haven't thought it all the way through. I would run into lots of people who are like, I put this course together a few years ago, and then I threw it on my site and I just haven't sold anything. But along with that attempt and shift of how they deliver the value, they didn't quite shift also the marketing and sales part of their business model to be able to regularly sell. Like, they know how to sell their services. They know how to keep their clientele, one-on-one clientele full, with the referrals and LinkedIn or going to networking and different things like that. But they haven't changed their sales and marketing to a one-to-many, along with their attempt at the one-to-many in delivery. So that's one of the big mistakes that gets made there as well. And then one other thing is that, now when you want to go bigger, now you need to go from, this is along the same line, you need to go from what I call network level awareness and marketing. So it's like, people in your network know what you do, like what you do, send your people your way. They know when to ask you, like, hey, I think I need to work with you. You need to go to an audience level at that point. It's like, oh, I've got an audience of people now who love what I do, are in my orbit, as I like to call it. And some percentage of those at any given time are ready to move forward to one of your offers. And so it's making that shift from network level to audience level. That's also one of the trickiest things. So that's one of the things I would sum up as making that shift. And then the other thing I would sum up in the delivery is sometimes they haven't really codified or turned into what I call a signature method, their approach to delivering results. They're really good at being in the room and intuitive and asking good questions, and they know how to get results, but it's like, now when I need to be able to help a wider sample of people, more people at once, people who might not get who don't have the one-on-one access to me, how do I ensure as good a result or even get people better results through that methodology? So it's these two things, the organization of their IP and then the switch in their marketing and sales approach, that are the two shifts that need to be made in order to open up that wider income and impact.
We interrupt this interview with an important announcement. If you're committed to better clients, bigger deals, and higher fees, get over to doitselling.com right now and grab a copy of my new book. That's the deal, kids. Grab a copy of the new book and then get all the bonuses, companion tools, trainings, and downloads at doitselling.com. Buy the book, get the bonuses. Buy the book, get the bonuses. Buy the book, get the bonuses. That's how it works. I'll see you over there. If we go to your website, jasonvanorden.com, and we'll also get some special resources and gifts later, but on the main homepage, you really break this down very concisely into positioning, platform, products. Yeah. So I want to kind of take us back to the positioning piece. Do some of the consultants and experts that come to you, not only do they not have the secret sauce, and we'll talk about your recipe for secret sauce here in a moment, but are they sort of all over the map? Like they don't know what they want to do when they grow up, and they've almost had this success accidentally, and their positioning is kind of a mess, and then they're not sure how to introduce themselves, and their website is very generic and vague, and they're not willing to say, I solve this problem or these problems for these exact kinds of people, and there's still sort of a wandering generality. Is that part of the positioning challenge?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I always end up doing some positioning work with every client, whether they're newer and a couple of years in, or whether they've been doing it for a while. And I think any of us who've been doing this a while know it's like we always need to be brushing up on what's the shift in the market, where do we sit in that market. But if you imagine like a pyramid, it represents these different levels of growth that you might go through as a coach or a consultant. That first couple of years is a lot of experimentation, right? And like, who do I serve best? Who do I want to serve most? What kind of results are people looking for? How do I get those results in a dependable way? And hopefully, eventually, you kind of narrow that down. But when you're doing a one-on-one work, you can still kind of go like, oh, I could help you with that. Okay, yeah, I'll put together a proposal. And oh, you know what? That's something I do too. Yeah, here's a proposal. And so we can still get in because we're like, hey, we want to help a lot of people and we don't want to say no to money. The next level up is where you're like, okay, now I'm clearer on who my person is. I'm clear on the results I can deliver to them. And now you're starting to see the themes in how you deliver those results. It's like, okay, most people come here. I need to assess where they're at. Here are the milestones we usually need to go through. Occasionally, I might be able to skip that milestone with some people, but you're starting to organize it, at least in your brain. Well, now what we're talking about here is now going yet to another level. It's like, well, turning that into a repeatable, dependable system that doesn't necessarily require you in order for it to deliver the results. And then, of course, another level up from that is, well, now can I license that or hire other coaches or, train the trainer or certify, like if that's what you want, you can take it to an even another level. But that's just kind of like some, levels of growth in terms of specialization and delivery that I see coaches and consultants go through.
Yes. So good. Talk about just relative to positioning. I know you have some magic beans around decommoditizing what we do.
Yeah.
And really claiming some very specific types of distinction that makes us less of an interchangeable part or a cog in a wheel that, we need a consultant to help us with this. Talk to 5 consultants, hire the cheapest one. Really moving into that category of one,
right,
where you are the only choice, you are the smartest choice, and they'd be afraid to hire anyone else because you really have the secret sauce. Walk us through what is some of that secret sauce, or how can we start thinking about that better?
Yeah. So this is what I call 3R messaging, because incidentally, there are 3 R's to it. And a lot of times we get the first R is relevance. And that's the one as a marketer, somebody realizes like, okay, I need to offer value that somebody else is looking for. That when they stumble upon my thing, they go, that looks like something I might need. And it's speaking to something they're actively, a concern, a problem, a goal, a desire that they want to deal with. And a lot of us learn that in our need to market. The next level from that, which we do varying degrees at, is resonance. Now, resonance is, you are now speaking a language to a narrow piece of your market. It might be a certain demographic. It might be people who have, tried a certain thing or tired of going that way or looking for a different way. There's something about your values, something about the way you show up, something about the vision that you paint for people, the way you make them feel, the way you help them think, that they're like, you know what? I vibe with you. And as humans, we're always looking for who do we trust? Same when we're trying to hire someone. And these little shortcuts we take to go, can I trust you to have my best interests in mind? And sometimes it's as simple as like, you're a parent, I'm a parent. Okay, that's one thing in the trust box, right? Or, sometimes it's like, oh, you care about such and such in the world. So do I. That's the kind of world I want to create. Another check in the box. Oh, you specifically help people with ADHD in my niche. Awesome. That's another check. Like, I know that you understand. So that's the resonance piece. It has to do with the language and also putting your personality and belief into what you're talking about. The third one is where a lot of people really struggle, and that's remarkability. And this is where you really break out from being a commodity. And the remarkability is like, well, why is it that you are the absolute best solution for that slice of the market that you know that you serve best? And we just talked earlier about knowing how important it is what people maybe have tried and what they're tired of. Like when you are looking at that person that you so badly want to help, they're jaded. They've tried things, maybe failed at them, had false promises given to them. They've heard certain things over and over and over again. And maybe they're just tired of and looking for a different approach. And they need to be able to trust you. They need to be able to have some new hope, some new thought that's like, oh, maybe it can be different this time. What if it was this way instead, right? So, like for the coaches and people that I work with, it'd be like, well, what if there was a way that you could serve 10 times the people in half as much work, but without sacrificing results? Because I know some of them have tried that and they're like, I'm not sure I'm getting as good of results for people. Or without having to be a pushy salesperson who, is doing this or that kind of marketing. It's like, yeah, I've tried that. I don't like it. It doesn't feel good. So knowing what it is that easy without statement, or even if you've tried this and it didn't work for you, that's just one example of remarkability factor. There are a lot of different ways. I'll give a very quick example here. I was scrolling through Instagram the other day. I do have ADHD, and so I get lots of ads about ADHD. And I'm always trying to learn to better manage my ADHD and leverage my strengths. And I get lots of apps like manage your time. I'm blind to that now. I've tried those. The ones that work, maybe I found a lot of them didn't. I'm jaded on that. And then this app ad showed up and said, what if AI could block the most important things into your schedule at the beginning of the week? And I was like, okay, that one I've not heard yet before. You've got my attention. And I started looking into it more. And then, they gave you a little, and like, okay, now I have a new hope, a new curiosity. Maybe this will actually work for me. Believe it or not, I still actually use that several months later, this AI software and I have failed at time blocking so many times in the past. So that was a remarkability factor that they had to get me to actually try something that I was completely jaded on and thought, oh, been there, done that. And if they think been there, done that, no, tired, like it's dead in the water. They're not going to listen to you any further. The remarkability factor really pulls them in and goes, there's something different here. Tell me more. They're leaning in and asking you to tell them more.
Yeah. Wow. That's such a great model. And it's such a great example of that model in action. I know that we're on the R's and the 3R's model of the positioning, relevance, resonance, and remarkability. I know you also have a special recipe or a special approach, both a mental approach and then a tactical approach to referrals. So while we're in the R section of the dictionary, walk us through kind of what are some assumptions around referrals for thought leaders and what really works in today's marketplace to stimulate the kind of referrals that we all want.
So I've noticed a couple things. First of all, I think it's easy to assume that the people in our network really understand what we do and that we've done a good job of telling them. And sometimes they think they know or they have an idea, but how is somebody supposed to refer somebody to you if they don't really understand? Now, it can be really hard to go one-to-one to everybody and give just the right pitch and hope that they remember it and that it really sticks for them. So one thing that I've done that has really helped me is I started, and this is for many different reasons, many different strategic advantages of this. I create frequent, consistent experiences. What I mean by that is like workshops, discussion groups, Q&A sessions, networking groups that I invite people into. And I use these as a way to show people what it would feel like to be a client of mine to see what kind of people I bring together, see how I lead a group, since all my programs are group programs, right? And so I started about a year ago doing these very action-focused workshops every single month, both as lead generation and part of my sales funnel, my customer journey. But what I started noticing too, even though a lot of people are attending those who weren't ready to be my client and may never actually be my client, a lot more people started saying, I get what you do now. I know who to send to you. I know that you create great value. Right now, suddenly I saw it clicking more in my people in my network as that who they could send to me. So that's one thing I've done to ensure that people understand that piece. Another thing that we assume is that, well, I'll get a referral at the moment that somebody knows somebody who needs my service right now, and that'll be great. And we've all had that situation. You get on the phone and it's an easy sale when that happens, right? Be wonderful if that could happen multiple times a month. And that's the trick, is like trying to scale that up if possible. But what I've noticed with these experiences, and particularly one of them that I have is a networking group specifically for subject matter experts, so coaches and consultants, kind of people I like to work with, and content creators and podcasters, and trying to match them up for visibility and collaborations and content and things. So something the people that I want to reach are looking for. And it's really easy for people to refer others into that experience, especially once they've come into like, this is an amazing community. This is an awesome group. We love sharing. I want to invite my friends into this as well. So my point I'm making here is I have this list of people that are consistently coming in from referrals to these experiences, even before the person necessarily needs my services. And that's great because now they're in my orbit. Now I have more time to build that relationship, or maybe show them when the right time might be for them to come and hire me, as opposed to waiting for that person to like, oh, I think you need Jason, now go over here. And so getting referrals earlier in the process is something we don't necessarily think about. But if you have the right invite for people to point others at, and that, a really quality networking group, a really quality discussion group, like different formats this can take, that's a way to get more referrals more consistently and earlier in the process.
Let me ask you what may be either an obvious or a stupid question, or both. I'm cool either way. So you're going into a networking group, or you're even convening. You're convening a webinar, Q&A session, interactive workshop. For folks that are new to you, and you know that you've got some veterans, you've got maybe a couple of clients on there, you've got some people that have seen you before, and you've got some people that are brand new to Jason, like brand new. Is there literally a slide somewhere in the beginning about, hey, for the folks that don't know, I'm Jason Van Orden. I work with coaches and consultants and professional service providers who want to scale and grow and blah, 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 blah. Is it literally a slide, or how do you introduce, here's who I am, here's what I do, in case you're new to my world?
Great question. And, with anything in our customer journey, there needs to be those moments where we're kind of starting to feed, right? And identifying who the people who might be ready right now are. And of course, I might have 50, 60 people show up to the networking group. Not all of them are being like, I need to create a group program right now. I need to, right? And so, yes, at the beginning, and there's a lot of different ways you can do this. Here are a couple that I do. At the beginning, I have a co-host as well. So both of us introduce ourselves. It's kind of a fun way to also experiment with different ways to introduce yourself in different language to see how people respond. Now, sometimes there's a couple groups that I do. And one of the groups, actually, there's a segment, like 5-10 minutes, in which I'll teach something and then send people into a breakout room to connect and network, but give them a question related to what we just talked about for them to discuss. And so now they're getting all this great value, hopefully from me, then also from others. And, it's creating this experience where hopefully they're thinking, oh, like I have an idea of what Jason does, and I got a lot of value from the thing that he created, right? Yeah. The other thing that I do, and another one of the networking groups that I do, is we'll have like the breakout rooms where we send people in, to meet 2 or 3 people. And then at the end, we have what we call our choose your own adventure round. And we'll have like 7 different rooms, topical. Sometimes we'll invite experts in to host one of those rooms, but essentially, it's a mini 20-minute Q&A session or present a little thing. And so, for instance, I just did one a couple of weeks ago at a networking thing, and I was talking about, hey, I'm going to give you some ideas about how to enroll clients from your existing audience in the next 14 days. And I talked a little bit about this experience stuff that we're talking about here. Well, out of those 50 or so people that were there, about 10 of them came to my room. And then, others were in my co-host room, and others were in the other topics that we had set up for them. Well, right there in that room, and I've trained myself to take a screenshot of who's in the room, right? Because I'm like, Great. Out of the 50 people that came, I know those are the 10 that have at least a little bit raised their hand and said, this is interesting. I'd like to know more about this. And then, of course, that's not going to just be a one and done thing. You got to have good follow-up. You got to know how to have ongoing conversations with these people. But that's just a couple of the ways where it's like, I'm planting, here's who I am, what I do, and identifying who are the people that I should be focusing on.
So that's really fascinating. So if, let's say I'm a leadership consultant, how to improve your leadership culture in the next 14 days, that's the breakout room where, because there's that timely component to it, it's like these people are more now than they are later. They might not be ready to become a client, but at least they're more likely to be a prospect group because they said, hey, I want to get this done in the next 14 days. That's a really, really clever idea. So are there other DNA markers besides kind of like the, hey, in the next 14 days? Or is that your main go-to, is the sense of urgency by giving them a timeline?
Yeah, no, there are other hooks that I'll use as well. And, incidentally, we talked a second ago about signature process, which is the backbone and curriculum for my programs. And whenever I'm planting a little thing into one, whether it's the 5-minute discussion or the 20-minute breakout room, or if you want to do in 1 hour, discussion group, I'm just plucking a piece out of my signature process. And I even let people know, it's like, hey, this is something I do with clients. This is something that's in one of my group programs. So again, another little plant of what I do. Of
course.
And so it's easy for me because I've organized it to go like, I'm going to take this little piece right here. I'm going to share this concept, give them a little framework to think about, and then we'll talk about it for 10 minutes and move forward. So point being is that, hopefully I'm answering your questions, I have different ones that I'll pull from because I know that in my audience, there are different hot buttons that different people might respond to. So sometimes I'm speaking to find more clients because, I don't have to tell you, like coaches and clients are always looking for new ways to find clients, right? Sometimes I'm speaking to the serve 10 times as many people in half the time. So they're kind of like scaling your methodology approach. Sometimes I'm talking more about the importance of a customer journey, because that's another big mistake that we didn't cover earlier. There's a lot of people out there networking. They're trying to get people on a call, and there's this big black box in the middle as to who do I invite to a call and how do I invite them to call. But anyway, I'm pulling from these different hot button issues and identifying and then tracking who's interested in what. And that just makes then the ongoing conversations and sales a lot easier.
Wait. We're not just going to listen to this episode. There are downloads, there are resources, there are links, there are bonuses waiting for you on this episode's page when you go over to doitmarketing.com/podcast. That's right, doitmarketing.com/podcast. Grab the notes right under this episode. See you over there. Let's talk. I know you also, the way that you do this and the way I'm sure that you teach and recommend that your clients do this is to really leverage the number one business network, which is, of course, LinkedIn. So let's talk a little bit about posting on LinkedIn, responding, liking, getting into conversations on LinkedIn. Because, for example, I'm imagining, again, established consultant comes to you and says, Jason, listen, do not talk to me about LinkedIn. I've been posting on LinkedIn twice a week for the last 5 years. I have not gotten a single shred of business from LinkedIn. And I'm sure the answer is, well, of course not, because you're doing it wrong or you're doing it not quite completely the way you should be. What would you say to that person who's like, dude, I've been posting on LinkedIn. My profile is awesome. My picture is perfect. Hasn't gotten me a shred of business in 5 years. What would be some corrective measures or some tactical adjustments they should make to get more out of LinkedIn?
Okay, I'm going to plug two holes that are often in people's process with LinkedIn. So let's say that you're posting and you want to invite people into one of these experiences. I mean, that's one of the biggest ways that I pull people off of LinkedIn. I'm doing the actual workshop. I'm doing the networking, right? So with a good value hook, that's going to bring them in. So I'm posting a piece of content. One mistake that a lot of people make is they'll post a little teaser piece of content that gives some value and then say, I'm doing a workshop on this, click this link, right? And that immediately kills their reach, for one. And sometimes even posting the link in the comment doesn't work so great. So what has worked best for me is to post the piece of content, give your engagement question, whatever. But then, if you've done a good job enticing people with your content and putting the invitation out there, I'm doing a workshop to help people enroll 3 new clients in the next 14 days from their existing audience. Comment X, and I've seen you use this approach as well. Comment scalable genius below, and I'll follow up, or direct message, because sometimes people don't want to comment. One reason why that works so much better is you're getting engagement, which then pushes more visibility and hopefully more engagement. Plus, you've got the social proof. Plus, you didn't kill it with a link where LinkedIn's like, we don't want people to leave LinkedIn. Don't put a link in the post, right? So that's one simple hole that, I do see people make a mistake there. Second thing is LinkedIn events can be quite powerful. And if you haven't tried, definitely put together a LinkedIn event. But there's two key things you need to do. Most people put the event and then LinkedIn's like, great, let's post it to your timeline. And then you do a post and there it is. Now you're just hoping for the best. That's not going to get you anywhere. So then the next thing that some people do is they know, oh, there's this invite button right here, share it, invite, and it pulls up a box. Now it's pretty cumbersome and they want you to check lots of boxes and everything. But what you can do is if you select a category of type of people like coaches, immediately it does give you a select all. Anyway, it gets a lot easier to select. So you go through and you send your, I think it's 1,000 invites you can send in a week, but without LinkedIn getting upset at you. So great. That's the second thing you can do. And then if you wait a couple of days, you're going to see you've got people saying, I'm interested in this. I want to attend. Da, da, da. Now, I haven't experimented with doing events on LinkedIn yet. I will. Usually I want to get them to a landing page to sign up for my list and get into and then come to the event. Problem is, a lot of people miss that step, or they're like, oh, this looks interesting, and then they go on with their LinkedIn stuff and they didn't see the landing page, so they don't have the information to attend. So the next step that is important to do is, every couple of days leading up between posting the event and actually doing the event, is you need to have conversations with those people. And it doesn't have to be anything too fancy. It's like you get in there like, thanks so much for expressing interest. Wanted to make sure you had the information for this workshop. Here's the page. So you got to do that extra, and then oh yeah, great. Thank you.
And that's within a LinkedIn private message.
Within direct message. Yeah.
Yeah. And
some ways that I make that faster and more efficient. I mean, sometimes you have a team member do it. You have to be a little bit careful with that on LinkedIn. Or there's a really easy tool called Text Expander that you can have on PC or a Mac, where it's a couple key presses, boom, fills in the message. I might change one sentence, send it off. So it's bam, 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 bam. And that way you actually get some of those people who've expressed interest to get on the list, sign and come to the event. So those are two holes that might give people some more results, especially if you already do have some people in your following. I mean, if you've got, 1,000 or more connections, and assuming they're well targeted, you should be able to get some of those people to say yes to an event and finally show up.
Totally tremendous. I think that's a very, very powerful set of tools, is combining some sort of, like you said, event, webinar, special kind of Q&A session, a roundtable workshop, and then using LinkedIn as kind of a force multiplier to get people off of LinkedIn and into your world. Let's talk about silly consultant behavior.
Okay.
And by silly consultant behavior, I mean folks who follow you, in some cases, folks who follow me, they see what we're doing and they're like, I serve Fortune 500 clients. I want to get in with, Inc. 5,000 clients. I'm going to do the same exact kind of marketing that Jason is doing. And they don't finish the sentence that Jason is helping you to do that, but his marketing is to consultants, coaches, experts, authors, thought leaders. So when people kind of show up on your doorstep, and they have this monkey see, monkey do attitude, like, Jason, I want to have a business just like your business. My answer when people say, David, I want to have a business just like your business, I said, that's nice. Thank you. Appreciate the compliment. That's not the business that you're in, right? I used to sell to and work with a lot of Fortune 500 companies, and that's where I built up my track record and war stories and methodology and training and tools. But if you do what I'm doing to attract consultants or coaches or consulting firms or coaching companies, that same stuff is not going to work to get you in with a Fortune 500 decision maker. So how do you kind of unpack, a very enthusiastic follower of yours going, no, don't do what I'm doing. Don't just mimic monkey see, monkey do. Do the strategies that will get you in front of the corporate decision maker that is your prospect.
Right. Yeah, because it could be that your prospect is, not going to attend a networking event or a workshop
exactly.
or whatever, right? I mean, it starts with making sure that you are clear about that positioning. Now, there are a lot of principles in what I'm doing. And when I teach, if somebody does come and join one of my groups or work with me, I have a framework to help them go like, well, here are the principles that are like the 80%, the lattice work, the foundation. But now we need to hang on top of that who you are, your strengths, who your audience is, what they're looking for, what they're gonna, willing to do. And a lot of times that's stuff behind the scenes that you're not necessarily seeing when you're just mimicking what somebody else is doing. So somebody could see like, oh, Jason's always doing events on LinkedIn. I guess I should do LinkedIn events as well. But they don't understand the strategy behind how I do the events, or some of those little holes that I just talked about, or how I've attracted my audience of people, or how I came up with the value hooks that are going to actually attract or get the right people to raise their hands, right? Hopefully I'm answering the question there. But the key is being able to understand what's going on really behind the curtain so you can adapt it to what you're trying to do.
Totally. And I think it's also about, which I'm sure when you start working with someone in one of your programs, get them off of the tactics and focus on the strategy first.
Oh, 100%.
Right? Because everyone wants, show me what to post on LinkedIn. Show me what the direct message is. Give me the script. Give me the tool. And it's like, dude, we have so much you're a strategic mess, but you're asking for a tactical quick fix or a Band-Aid.
Yeah, that's a really good. That's a really good point. And so an example of that is if somebody comes in like, well, I see what you're doing on LinkedIn and I want to learn that, and say they come to my program. Well, the first thing I'm going to do early on is I'm going to bring up this like flow chart, which is like the zoom out of the strategy. And I'm talking about, well, here are the principles behind why this works. Only a certain percentage of people are ready to work with right now. You need to have them in orbit. Anyway, so I'm teaching them all that. And then I'm going down, don't be overwhelmed by this. We're going to go through this in a strategic order, one by one. And the good news is, as you even add one piece at a time, you're going to start seeing upticks. We're going to do it in an order but then when it's done, you have the pieces, you see how they connect together. You see how they're driving the metrics that are important to you, new inquiries or new calls with clients with the right kind of people. And then you're not, putting together like this Frankenstein's how appropriate we're recording this in fall when it's almost Halloween, Frankenstein's monster of a business model, because you've just been like stitching together all these little tactical pieces. And now the thing's wandering around aimlessly and not doing what you want it to do.
Right. Absolutely. Let me ask you one more fairly substantial question, and then we'll land the plane. A lot of times when people think online courses, group coaching, scalable offers, most B2B consultants suddenly get slapped in the head with the B2C 2x4. And they're like, I'm just going to sell this to onesies. And I'm remembering earlier in our conversation, you mentioned licensing, certification, right? So those are B2B models. I don't want you to sell one course to one random guy on a Tuesday afternoon. I want you to sell 50 seats or 500 seats to a mid-sized company or a division of a Fortune 500 company. So please debunk this idea that companies don't license digital training, digital courses, and thought leadership content.
Yeah, and there's a lot of opportunity there when you do it right. And one of the tricky things that people overlook is early on in the process, I'll do customer research. I'll have, teach them a good process for customer research, doing some interviews to figure out what language do we need to be using, what outcomes are we marketing to. Well, when you're doing B2B like that, you have a couple different constituents you need to be thinking about. The end user, who's, the team of people that's going to be put into your program. But then you got the buyer, the person who's like actually a decision maker that says, yep, that's what I want for my 30 salespeople or whatever. Yeah. So that's one thing, is you need to make sure you're talking to both sets of people. So like when I had one client who had this great approach to resilience, teaching teams to be more resilient, we're like, great, but let's go talk to the decision makers, the CEOs, the leaders that would actually be making that decision. Let's see, well, what is it that they are looking for that is going to grab their attention and go, yep, that's what my team needs. Because they're probably not waking up in the morning going, I wish my team was more resilient. And what we found out is, at least at the time, maybe it shifted, is that they were worried about losing their best people, because it's really expensive when you lose your best people and have to hire somebody new, and all that organizational knowledge walks out the door. And they're worried about burnout at the time. It's like, I'm not getting what I need out of my people in order for us to keep moving this train forward at the rate that we need to. So we had to meet them there with that messaging, and then show how You teach your team resilience, it's going to get you to those outcomes that they're looking for. So that was one key thing, was doing both sets of customer research so you knew how to speak to that person. And then, of course, the other piece is you got to know, well, what strategy is going to work best? Are they going to want to just buy 30 seats to a digital thing that they give people access to? Are they going to want to bring you in for also some, and so that's, that kind of research is also going to help you to put the offer together in a way that fits their needs as well.
Absolutely. Well, two final questions for you. The final question is going to be, how can people get connected and stay connected to more Jason Van Orden brilliance? But even before we get there, if folks were to take one overarching concept away from our conversation today, which was so fantastic, what would you hope that one big takeaway would be?
Yeah, so many things we touched on, but here's one, and I'll put it in a slightly different way than we've said it. Like, we know that in growing a business, there are all these operations things we want to get off our plates. And so we create systems, standard operating procedures, we delegate, we streamline, we make it more efficient, and that allows us then to have more time to do the things we need. We don't apply the same principle and logic to our intellectual property, our approach to delivering results. And that's what the signature process is about. It's like taking out of your head and realizing, oh, these are the key elements, and this is how I can optimize that and streamline it. So now you've got the standard operating procedures, you've got the frameworks, you've got the things where removes you from the center as having to be present in every, experience of delivery, to like, now the process is the star. So in the same way you see this being important, you got to realize at some point you got to get serious about standardizing your your signature process, so that then you can, whatever that ultimate goal is that you look like, you can now slice and dice and repackage and grow your capacity to serve people, impact people, and make better income as well.
Amen. Well, how can people get connected and stay connected to more Jason Van Orden brilliance? What resources, what links, what goodies would you like to share? And we're going to put all of these obviously in the show notes directly under this episode. But what do we got? Where can we send people?
Wonderful. I appreciate it. Yeah. So we talked about remarkability factor. If that's really speaking to people, I've got a workshop that you can go, and it's very actionable. It's got a workbook, and it'll walk you through this process of coming up with your remarkability factor. So you can find that at jasonvanorden.com/R factor. You don't have to spell remarkability, just R factor. Made it easy for you. The other thing we talked about is how I use these experiences to bring people into my orbit. And there's a whole other strategy around that. And if you're curious to hear and see that zoomed out flow chart of how it all pieces together, then I invite you to grab my free gravity method workshop. And you can get that one at jasonvanorden.com/gravity. So /R factor or /gravity, or both if you're feeling especially motivated today.
Welcome to the Jason Van Orden buffet of amazingness. And all of those resources, like I said, directly under this episode at thesellingshow.com. Jason, you are a rock star. We just scratched the surface. We could obviously talk for hours, and we will, because we have to have you back. So thank you for being on.
Thank you, David. It's been a pleasure.
And that wraps up another episode of The Selling Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, tell a friend, go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thesellingshow.com. See you next time.